history nerds and historians. My name is Christina, and this is Effed Up History. This is where we talk about a little tidbit from history that's super fucked up. International Women's Day is March 8th, and in honor of that, we're going to talk about a badass woman from history named Boudicca. So sit back, relax, and practice your oh good god, what the fuck faces. Boudicca was a Celtic queen that lived around 60 in the Common Era. Most of the information we have about her is from the Romans, namely a man named Tacitus, who was a Roman senator and historian that lived around that time. He was a small child, apparently, when this whole event of today's story went down, but he probably grew up hearing stories about this. It's kind of weird, though, because he doesn't paint her in a negative light. So who was telling him these stories? It's like in the Chamber of Secrets in Harry Potter, when Dobby is all like, Dobby has heard amazing things about Master Harry Potter, but in the Malfoy household, who is saying amazing things about Harry Potter? Insert Draco is in love with Harry fan fiction here. Also J.K. Rowling is trash, but Harry Potter defined my childhood. So I make a lot of Harry Potter references, even though I don't support TERFs. So if you're trans, you're welcome here. If you're J.K. Rowling, get the fuck out. Anyway, when Boudicca was 18, she married Prasutagus, who was king of the Iceni tribe in modern day Anglia, which is East England, for any of us who are terrible with geography, aka Americans who don't learn about anything. Now, the Celts were barbarians, which I hate that word because it's so xenophobic of the time. It literally comes from the Greek to talk about other groups of people, making fun of the way they talked because they thought it sounded like bar, 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 bar. It literally would be if we called anyone who spoke a different language blah blahians, just because we couldn't understand what they were saying. It's extremely xenophobic, but anyway, a lot like how the Vikings are portrayed, the Iceni women were not as oppressed. It wasn't believed that they belonged only in the home. They trained as warriors and were strong and fierce and did not take anyone's shit. So Boudica and her husband ruled the Iceni people and amassed considerable wealth. Happening at the same time was the Roman conquest of southern Britain. The Romans let Prasutagus continue to rule as an ally, and to try to appease and foster good relationships between the Iceni tribe and Rome, the king, Prasutagus, rewrote his will and left half of his wealth to his daughters and his wife. And because he didn't have any sons, the patriarchy had to get its share, and the other half went to the Roman emperor, Nero, who's one of the worst criminals in all of history. So of course, this went really well. The whole peace and good relations thing lasted. It didn't happen. After Prasutagus died, the Romans ravaged the kingdom. They publicly whipped Boudicca in the street. They raped her daughters, and they took everyone, even the royalty, as slaves. So Boudicca led her people and other Celtic tribes in a revolt and attacked. I can never say this word. Attacked Camulodunum. It's modern Colchester. Tacitus wrote that the statue of victory erected there fell off her base and lay on the ground with a face averted as if the goddess yielded to the enemies of Rome. Within the council chamber, screams were heard in a foreign accent. The sea purpled with blood, and when the tides ebbed, traces of bodies were left in the sand, and the vastly outnumbered Romans were overtaken, and the colony lay waste with fire and sword. And I want to emphasize, an army of barbarians led by a woman overthrew a Roman colony. And girl, we are not done. 2 days later, Commander Petilius Cerealis came to the defense, and Boudica and the Celtic tribes marched on to meet him, and they cut the infantry into pieces, and the Romans retreated. Then they marched to London, which wasn't a Roman colony, but was the heart of trade. The Roman army, led by Roman governor Suetonius, retreated, left behind those who he deemed could not come due to their age or the, quote, weakness of their sex. And no tears could change the general's mind. And when the Celts came, none were spared. Although I do find it funny that Tacitus mentions the quote weakness of sex here, clearly referring to women, when the army that was slaughtering all of these Romans and overtaking cities was led by a fucking woman, which tells me that perhaps the quote weakness of their sex might refer to the Romans. Or maybe we just shouldn't bring sex and gender into this at all and just say the Iceni tribes were better, the Celts were better, and the Romans were cowards. So the Iceni tribes continued to make their way through, chasing after the Roman army, taking over any cities that they could, and they plundered their riches. Tacitus says that they massacred at least 70,000 Romans and Roman allies, but remarked that military skills were not the talent of the barbarians because they didn't like rape and take people as slaves because, you know, they were decent human beings. At this point, Suetonius gathered an army of about 10,000 people and chose a spot to camp out that was surrounded by woods, and because he didn't want to make himself vulnerable to an ambush. So the Celts had no choice but to attack from the front, which I mean is a good military strategy. But I think it also shows how like fucking scared he was of Boudica and the army that she was leading. So they just sort of like sat there and laid in wait until the Celts came into this open field. And the Celts just like marched right in, no formation, just weapons drawn on the field. Like, yeah, we're fucking here. What you gonna do about it? Fight me. Fucking bring it. I am ready. We will shed Roman blood today. And Boudica in her fucking chariot with her daughters by her side starts riding through the crowd, giving this empowering speech like, this is not the first time that y'all have been led by a woman, but I am not going to sit here and boast about how wonderful women are and about the long line of female leaders, because it is a long line of female leaders. But you know our history. We aren't here to regain our wealth or win back our lands. We are here for fucking revenge. Revenge against the whippings that I received. Revenge against the raping of my daughters, of your daughters. Revenge against our brothers and sisters that have been taken into slavery. We are here to teach these Roman bastards a lesson. These prideful, fucking arrogant Romans to which nothing is sacred, who treat the olds like the scourges of society, who demean women, who forcefully deflower their virgins and disrespect literally everyone in their society that is not the fucking emperor and friends of the fucking emperor. And with their lives, they will pay for this disrespect. Look at them even now, cowering, hiding in the forest, shrinking back with terror. And look at you. You are proud. You are fearless. You are warlike. Remember our motives and why we fight. We will not run. We will not hide. We will not back down. And here and now, we will either conquer them or we will die with glory, and there is no other option. And to quote Tacitus, quote, though I am but a woman, my resolution is fixed. Holy fuck, what a goddamn speech. Like, I would join this in a fucking second. I want to go fight the Romans. Like, I think about speeches in movies. Like, I think of like Leonidas in 300 where he's like, Spartans, ready your breakfast and eat hearty, for tonight we dine in hell. Which, like, side note, hell wasn't a thing for the Greeks. It would have been more like, tonight we dine in the underworld if we receive the proper burial rites, which they probably wouldn't, because we're all slaughtered by an army from a different country that don't recognize our beliefs. But that's besides the point. The speech doesn't motivate me. It doesn't make me want to fight. I don't want to dine in the underworld. I want to like dine at my kitchen table. I want to like dine while like huddled over the counter, scooping food into my mouth quickly before my son realizes what I'm eating. But Boudica's speech, like, I want to go fight the Romans. I don't care that 2,000 years has passed. Like, I will build a fucking time machine and go join the legions and probably die instantly because I have no skills whatsoever with a sword or a weapon, but I will die with glory. Meanwhile, Suetonius hears this and he's like, yeah, I'm going to address my army too. I can give a rousing speech as well. I'm not going to be emasculated by this bamf of a woman riding around on her chariot. Hey, everybody. Listen to those yucky barbarians It's not actually what he calls them. He calls them undisciplined barbarians. But I just feel like Yucky fits this character better. And he talks about like how the women outnumber the men, and like what does that say about them? These are bastards and people who run away from your sword. It's like, hold on a second, aren't you the ones who have been like running away the whole time? There are flaws in your speech, Suetonius. And then he talks about like immortal glory and victory and blah, 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 blah. And it worked. I mean, the soldiers like burned with impatience and, quote, warlike vigor and charge. And Celts advanced with ferocity. But the Romans, I mean, they were powerful for a reason. Like, they were conquerors for a reason. If you take highly skilled and trained warriors with formations and military strategies against a group that, you know, are warriors, but they don't have like a cohesive military front. Like, they're all from different tribes. Perhaps the Iceni fight different from another tribe that they've banded together. I mean, it's an unequal fight. The Celts were unfortunately just completely slaughtered. Tacitus says that they lost over 80,000 people, and women and old were not spared, just like the Celts did not spare the women and the old in the cities that they overtook. When Boudica heard of their loss, when she was standing on the battlefield and she noticed the loss, the sheer amount of loss, and how there was no way that they were going to win, she poisoned herself, because that was much better than the fate that faced her, which would have at best been a really terrible execution, and at worst would probably be a slave, most likely of the sexual nature. The story of Boudica was revived during the English Renaissance, and she continues today to even be an important cultural figure in the UK, and it's no question why. She's amazing, and she's a fierce and strong woman. She is extremely empowering, and I'm just like so honored to talk about her and tell her story today. So happy International Women's Day. Go out there and be like Boudica and like crush the fucking patriarchy, I swear. By the way, since St. Patrick's Day is next week, this story has to do about the Celts. Remember, side note, bonus story for you, little tidbit of trivia. St. Patrick, whose name wasn't even Patrick at all, but Palladius, didn't run actual snakes out of Ireland. Scientists believe that there were never snakes in Ireland to begin with. What he did run out were the Celtic people, namely the pagan group, often associated with them being the Druids. They were regarded as snakes because of their, quote, ungodly worship, and because it's believed that many of them had large snake tattoos down their arms, because for them, snakes were seen as a symbol of wisdom. So while you're drinking your green beer and wearing your green clothing and pinching people who aren't wearing green, just remember, it's Happy Druid Massacre Day. Yeah. There are a lot of people who identify as like Irish or Celtic who don't celebrate St. Patrick's Day for that very reason. So yeah, super fun note to end on. Thank you so much for listening today. If you have a story from history or mythology that you'd like to hear me discuss, please reach out. I'm always looking for new ideas and new stories to discuss. You can email me at effeduphistory@gmail.com, or you reach out on any of my socials, which are at effeduphistory. You can also subscribe or leave a review if you like what you heard. And remember, history may be watching you, so don't fuck it up and stick it to the motherfucking patriarchy.